Okay, everybody, me again. I come to talk at you some more about some of the experience we at ECS Digital have had. This particular presentation is based on some experience I had middle of last year and rolling on into this year at a well-known diamond producer. We won't be mentioning names, but a well-known diamond producer. So what we're going to be covering in this short presentation is a little bit of background around the diamond industry, just to give you some context to the problems that we were facing and how we solved them with digital transformation, containers, and DevOps generally. An understanding of a little bit of how the diamond industry is evolving, not just from a technology perspective, but from a cultural and governance perspective. And then obviously I'll go into a bit of detail around what we did and some of the lessons we learned along the way. And I promise that I won't run over so we can actually have Q&A at the end of this one. So let's dive straight in. So a little bit of a rudimentary overview of the diamond industry as you know it. I mean, there's if any of you have Netflix, there's been a few shows on Netflix recently around diamonds and the industry and how demand is tightly controlled, and the practices that have been conducted over the last century or so are somewhat shady. But traditionally, the diamond industry, there's not a lot of traceability. They're digging up precious stones from out of the ground all over the world, Sierra Leone, South Africa. There's a lot of diamonds being produced out of, or dug up out of the ground from Russia. But there's not a lot of traceability from where they come out of the ground as they cross numerous borders and they make their way into London and get cut and recut and inserted into various jewelry and sold then for an exorbitant fee. Very traditional sort of retailer. You go to a jewelry shop. Obviously, with the advent of e-commerce, online shopping is obviously a thing. But you still can go to a jewelry store. You can speak to a quote-unquote diamond expert or a jewelry expert, where they'd give you a long, convoluted story about the cut and the quality. I don't know how many of you in the room have bought diamonds for loved ones or for themselves. So you've been through the process, right? You've gone to the store and they've told you the story of where it's from, how it was cut, what it means. There's a story to be told around where it's come from. And of course, the industry as well as the people who work in it are very much a boys' club, right? It's a very old industry, and it's one that is traditionally very wealthy people who want to remain in power have controlled the flow of diamonds and the profits made from them. And that's generated huge international monopolies that control exactly who gets these diamonds, who gets the opportunity to buy them and sell them and so on. And then that all leads into the kind of the shrouding and the mystery of diamonds. There's always the conspiracy that there was De Beers are holding a stockpile in London, and they slowly release more and more diamonds as demand drops or increases, just so they can control the price. They do say now that they promise they don't have that stockpile. But during the 40s and 50s, there is evidence to show that they were controlling demand to a number of syndicates within London, and used it for political and international gain. Certainly through the First World War, a syndicate in London were forced to sell their stockpile. Otherwise, international aid wouldn't be given. During passing on materials for building tanks and boats and ships and stuff, and that whole thing is really driven, one by powerful people with lots of money, but also a very good marketing, right? How many of you know of diamond-related kind of sales slogans? Can you shout one out, anyone? Diamonds are forever? Diamonds are a girl's best friend, yeah. How much are you supposed to pay for your first diamond? Do you know how much when you get engaged? Yeah, three times your salary, like a month's salary, right? It's entirely fictitious, right? It's made up by the marketing people inside these large diamond producers to encourage you to see value within rocks. That's all they are. They are carbon that has been compressed under great heat and pressure deep within the earth, and then in some parts of the world they've made their way to the surface, and they're being able to be collected, polished, and sold really to the highest bidder. So that really is a little bit of the background, kind of the power of a good product and a good marketing and very deep pockets, and it really kind of the three main aspects of the diamond industry are based on these things, right? The idea that diamonds are forever, so you never really want to sell it as an asset. It's something that you keep in your family and you pass it down through generation to generation. It really is a status symbol. You can prove to people that you've made it if you've got lots of diamonds, diamond rings, diamond earrings, gold encrusted iPhone case with studded diamonds in them. And because of that marketing, it's become a symbol of everlasting love, and it's that kind of alludes to the practices of these organizations and how, due to their age, they certainly need to change as we become a more open and progressive world. So, a great diamond is said to be transparent, and it is clear that the industry is not. So let's talk about kind of how the industry has been evolving. So some of the issues that I've described around, the control of a surplus, using marketing as a ploy to tell you that diamonds are actually worth more than they are, to make you, to not tell you where they're from, so that you don't know that they've come out of Sierra Leone. And they're funding some sort of illegal war, but it's just a pretty rock that you can give to your beloved. So what they've done is over the last century is the introduction of certificates, so a diamond certificate from GIA, and that basically gives you some rudimentary information around kind of the region in which it was mined. Which diamond producer was the first then to analyze and cut the diamond, where was then those cut diamonds passed along the value chain and then eventually down into Tiffany's or Bloomingdale's. And it's then really about proving the three things. It's about proving provenance, authenticity, and traceability through the value chain. So this start on authenticity, through the advent of different scientific techniques, diamonds can now be created. We don't have to wait millions of years, deep within the earth. We can create perfect diamonds without any imperfections that can be almost indetectable certainly by the human eye. And it's the requirement of very specific advanced technology that is able to determine that it wasn't a natural diamond. And that is, in some ways devaluing the promise that the diamond industry has made to its consumers, that these are precious stones that will last forever. And it's important for them to protect that authenticity and to make sure that the natural diamonds are the ones that you desire as a consumer. Provenance, again, is kind of ensuring that it hasn't come out of a conflict zone, or it hasn't been stolen and recut, and you can ensure that it is actually a legitimate diamond that hasn't been involved in some way in crime. And that traceability then is being able to string all of that together. So diamonds in the value chain will move from different producers. So maybe it's dug out of the ground in Russia and it goes to Alrosa, but Alrosa think that they can make more money by passing it over to someone like De Beers, and they can pass it along and cut it in a different way, and everybody can profit from having a hand in how that stone makes its way down into the retail store. And then really, with any asset, it's the desire to have an end-to-end auditable certificate to say who has touched this diamond, what has happened to it, and how do we ensure that the data that is on that certificate is true. So, the last 4 or 5 years, certainly from 2009 up to the present day, so the last decade, blockchain and the idea of a public ledger has been talked about, and there's been lots of white papers, and I'm sure you heard about cryptocurrencies and how blockchain is trying to revolutionize the value chain of any asset. So this organization decided that they were going to, due to the nature of the industry, the lots of different providers who do not trust each other, need to work together to make a coherent and a true end-to-end audit chain. They decided that a open, quote-unquote, public blockchain, so a ledger in which any consumer of the data can see all of the transactions that have happened, when it was dug out of the ground, who was the first person to polish it, which organization decided how to cut the stone, where did each of those cuts end up, all the way down, right the way from stone to the engagement finger. They wanted to build, use new technology to drive this innovation, and also have a process that can be governed, but not by any single entity. So if you have direct competitors that are working in the same industry but need to share data, they don't want to have a single. They don't basically want to trust somebody else. Alrosa don't trust De Beers with all of their data, and vice versa. So having a technology such as blockchain is one way to achieve this. So obviously, new technology, an industry that is transforming and is really modernizing very quickly. There are some challenges, and I'll go in a few slides, go into how we helped with those challenges. But first of all is the data integrity. So it's ensuring that the sources where this data has come from, so that it is a particular person in Russia that has actually dug this out of the ground. They can have photo evidence, time, date stamps, and be verified by a local producer. And all of that information then can be updated in a way that cannot be tampered with. And obviously that data needs to be secure. Again, that's why the blockchain was chosen. They could have used a large distributed database, which some argue that's what blockchain is. But having a process where everybody can see every single transaction, so you can never fake any of the data to prove that a diamond is actually worth more than it is. And it's the same with any asset. You want to be able to ensure that the data integrity is maintained right the way through the value stream and the information is secured. Excuse me. There are some technologies that we were using during this process, like the Intel Enclave. So it's the ability to secure information on the blockchain and in transit so that it can't be intercepted while it was being updated or being shared. Talk again about that trustless architecture so that no single entity has the ability to change or manipulate the data that's being stored. A need to stay relevant. So the technology was chosen so that investors would be excited to get involved in the new venture. It changes the industry, the really old industry, and it means that it stays relevant in the minds of new customers and new investors. And then finally, with any new technology, there's obviously a skills gap. We weren't writing Java or .NET applications. This was writing Go and in Rust. This was using containers in the development pipeline as well as into prod, and it was filling a skills gap that not many organizations have due to the scale and the nature of the organization that we were working with. Now, unfortunately, all of those issues did stack up, and we as ECS Digital didn't join the party until about a year into the development cycle. And once we had joined, we realized that there were a number of missteps that had been taken prior to us joining, and that was due to the incumbent supplier that was providing the help to this organization. So, we identified some of the issues as being, it was a large consultancy that was providing offshore engagement to the organization. They didn't really have investment in what they were building in terms of caring about providing good technology, good tooling, and architecture that will eventually scale. They were interested in providing lots of bodies and making sure that they're getting a premium on the consultants that were landing and providing technical support. So, enter us, ECS Digital. We joined the foray, and we had to sit down and understand how to get this customer from where they were to being able to develop and deploy quickly. So some of the challenges that we face, we had to start basically from scratch. We re-architected a number of their components, and we re-platformed them, moving them across from Azure, which was actually on the incumbent consultancy's infrastructure, which we thought obviously was a large misstep. And we moved them into their own AWS estate. A number of decisions were made based on the velocity of the development cycle and the type of developers that were at our disposal. That vendor lock-in wasn't really an issue. So we decided that AWS for their use cases was the best option. So we invested heavily in EC2, into message queues, and to RDS to secure a lot of their data and really invest in AWS as a platform, making sure that we can move forward and develop in a fast, coherent, and safe way. So we undertook some discovery, and we obviously discovered some unrealized workloads. So this was things like monitoring, logging, networking, all as needed to be defined as code. And all of the developers and the testers had to be upskilled to be able to interact with this quote-unquote new way of working for them as they were moving across from Azure to AWS and adopted more of the development practices sooner in the development lifecycle. So we were shifting left. We were making sure that they were building Docker containers, and they were pushing code correctly into GitHub and into GitLab, and making sure that there was the correct amount of smoke testing and performance testing before they ever got near production. Building out, a lot of it was again then documentation, building out that coherent those standards. So making sure that the role-based access control was implemented in the correct fashion that would scale from the 5 or 6 developers that we had when we started the project to the 15 or so developers and 12 testers that we ended with. And then making sure that they really embraced agile and sprint-based or scrum-based development, making sure that every 2 weeks we were having the appropriate ceremonies to make sure that work was being completed in a timely fashion. So some metrics around kind of our engagement. Obviously, due to some of the issues with the incumbent consultancy, we had a 999 call on a Friday afternoon, and they said, look, we have some issues. We've been passed your contact information from a partner, and we'd like you to come in and start on Monday. We'll fast track all the paperwork. That original PO was scoped at 10 days, and it was supposed to come in and fix a very specific issue with their implementation of Rancher, and we ended up delivering 250 days. And that was just due to the scale of work they hadn't realized needed to be completed before they ever got near production. And to that end, because we had provided the documentation and the length of service that we had, we found it difficult then to disengage with the customer without a lengthy handover process. So obviously, once we had discovered all of this work and we had started building out all of the infrastructure and then planning all the new work that needed to be completed, there were still a number of challenges that we had to undertake. Like I've already said, a number of global diamond producers that didn't want to work together. So there were a lot of issues around geopolitics. So we weren't allowed to deploy a number of our services into or allow our services to be accessed via Russia. So simple things like DNS and some of our software-defined networks had to circumnavigate Russian IP addresses, and it made for a challenging implementation, but certainly one that's great to talk about. Securing data on the public ledger, so that's again referring to the blockchain. And if everybody has access to all of the information, how do you secure any of it? You know, there are some information that they didn't want to share with one another and with the public. So there was a great investment in the Intel Enclave and being able to have a secure and encrypted method of communication and storage whilst being on public or almost public infrastructure. And then the changing of requirements. Obviously, as the incumbent consultancy left, there was a new board that was implemented into the startup, new product owners, and they saw a different direction, not a great one, but a different direction to pull in, and it meant that there were a number of changes to the initial design and architecture that obviously we had to work hand in hand with them to make sure that they could deliver on time. But as they say, no challenge is too large. So when we left, or when we were drawing this engagement to a close, we had delivered a fully integrated CI/CD pipeline using containers. So this was running on Rancher 2.0, so using Kubernetes as the container orchestrator. GitLab was driving the build and CI of this pipeline. So our code commit was entered into gitlab.com, into various components of an application. Then that would automatically build, test, and promote a Docker image into a image registry that was on GitLab as well. And then that would automatically then be deployed into any one of the CI environments and test environments that are available. So we were having this constant cycle every day. 2 or 3 deployments were being made into pre-live, and the whole thing was automated. As soon as the developer decided to deploy a piece of code, a feature, or a bug fix, within 10 minutes, the whole environment would be rotated and redeployed as containers into the AWS estate. And the whole thing was automated as code, as we feel it should be for everything, both infrastructure, application, networking, security, storage. Everything should be either in a container or should be triggered via a CLI or a tool like Terraform or Puppet or Jenkins from within inside a container. So there's no lasting footprint on any of the infrastructure, and we're able then to make that repeatable. And what we were able to do is deploy 4 production environments, again, all running as Docker containers, 6 pre-live environments. So that's your CI, your release, SIT, perf testing, and soak testing. They were all deployed every week, redeployed just to refresh all of the data. And at any point, if a demo was needed for, if the board came in, we needed a demo environment, we were able to spin one up in a couple of minutes. Each environment or each application consisted of around 20 containers, and each of those containers then had a pipeline in the back end that created them in that inner loop, that development inner loop, that was able to deploy containers and application fixes within minutes. And then each environment then had around 8 VMs, 8 EC2 instances that were auto-scalable depending on their demand. And that was across multiple AWS regions. So some of the build components which I've already gone through. So we were able to build locally within containers. We were able then to have that infrastructure optimization, because developers were able to do things on their local machine, test them in a meaningful way before pushing them out into GitLab, where the build process would validate all of the findings that they've made. And all of the components were self-contained in and of themselves, where they all had a GitLab CI configuration, so we could pass them around to any machine, and they would be rebuilt and actioned in the same way. And the same goes then really for the infrastructure. Everything was defined as Terraform, so as infrastructure as code. The Terraform CLI was actually wrapped in a container, and then that was used to deploy into our AWS estate. And we really, we wanted to treat the infrastructure in exactly the same fashion as we wanted to treat our applications. A code change or a change to a load balancer configuration or a storage backend meant a code change in GitLab, a PR, someone approved it, and everyone is aware of a release as it happens. And that cycle then continued, almost daily, with an environmental refresh every week. So hopefully you've taken away something from that. So some concluding thoughts. Any industry, even if it's the diamond industry that has been around for decades, can modernize. Any application lifecycle can benefit from containers. Obviously, I can go into a lot more detail if you want to come grab me later and the specifics about how we did it. And why not rethink the ordinary? So, diamonds have been around for a long time. They've obviously made billions of dollars globally for the people who dig them out of the ground and sell them. But this startup, and certainly with a partnership with ECS Digital, we've been able to rethink the way that they deliver applications and their asset management for those assets. So any questions?
Which public ledger did you go for? Why was it selected?
So the Ethereum ledger or the blockchain was selected, and it was based upon its potential growth. So some of the key players that were already using the Ethereum network, and it's the protocol that were being developed. So the integration with Lightning, and some of the potential with the distributed applications that were being developed. But again, it was really a commercial decision to which one would have the biggest growth. Okay, thanks guys.